The year is 1945. The deafening roar of war that had consumed the globe for 6 long years is finally falling silent. In Europe, cities lay in ruins, ghostly skeletons of what they once were. Close up, rubble and ruined facades. The Third Reich, Adolf Hitler's monstrous 1,000-year empire, had crumbled to dust in just 12. Victory had been declared, but as the smoke cleared, a chilling reality began to emerge, far more horrifying than the battlefields themselves. The world was about to confront the true scale of the Nazi regime's atrocities. Allied soldiers liberating camps, Auschwitz, Bergen-Belsen, Dachau, they were met with scenes straight from a nightmare. They found mountains of skeletal bodies, gas chambers, crematoria, and survivors whose eyes had been hollowed by unimaginable suffering. These were not just casualties of war. This was evidence of a deliberate industrial scale extermination, experiments, forced labor, systematic murder of millions, Jews, Roma, political opponents, and countless others. The idea of putting the leaders of a sovereign nation on trial was revolutionary. Historically, victors might execute or imprison defeated leaders, but a formal legal process for crimes against humanity was entirely new territory. There was no existing international court, no agreed upon laws for prosecuting such crimes. The United States, Great Britain, the Soviet Union, and France had to build it from the ground up. This led to the London Charter, establishing the International Military Tribunal and defining the crimes. It was a bold attempt to impose the rule of law on the chaos of war's aftermath. The purpose was twofold: accountability and education. Robert H. Jackson left the U.S. Supreme Court to lead the prosecution. He believed the trial must be a history lesson for the world. He would use the Nazis' own meticulous records, the memos, the orders, the films, the photographs, to build an undeniable case. He said, what we must establish incredible events by credible evidence, a hybrid of legal traditions equipped with simultaneous translation, designed to be fair and seen to be fair. When the trial began on November 20th, 1945, 24 individuals were indicted, but only 21 sat in the dock. These were not simple soldiers. They were the surviving elite of Hitler's inner circle. They represented every major pillar of Nazi power. Seeing them together was surreal. Once masters of life and death, now ordinary, diminished. At the forefront, Hermann Goering, Hitler's designated successor, flamboyant, ruthless, unrepentant. He tried to turn the trial into his final stage. Beside him, Rudolf Hess, Hitler's former deputy, who flew to Scotland in 1941, later feigning amnesia. The architects of war and racial policy, Joachim von Ribbentrop, Wilhelm Keitel, Alfred Rosenberg, from diplomats who lied, to ideologues who poisoned minds, to officials who managed the logistics of genocide. Industrialists and bureaucrats kept the system running. Hjalmar Schacht, Walter Funk, Albert cogs in a vast, efficient machine of terror, a rogues gallery of the men who made the unthinkable happen. Their presence crystallized a promise. The world would hold the architects to account. The indictment was revolutionary. It laid out 4 main counts to cover the full spectrum of Nazi criminality. For the first time, international law sought to codify starting a war and systematic atrocities. Prosecutors had a mountain of evidence, much of it created by the Nazis themselves. Count 1, conspiracy to commit crimes against peace. Count 2, crimes against peace. Count 3, war crimes. Count 4, crimes against humanity. Prosecutors showed deliberate, long-term plotting, Hitler's rise, rearmament, deception, culminating in invasions across Europe, Austria, Czechoslovakia, Poland, Denmark, Norway, and more. Aggressive war would be named the ultimate international crime. War crimes covered murder of prisoners, destruction of cities, use of slave labor. Crimes against humanity addressed persecution, extermination, particularly the Holocaust, murder, extermination, enslavement, deportation, now prosecutable under law. On November 20th, 1945, the trial officially opened. The world held its breath. Inside, the atmosphere was electric, functional space redesigned for history. 4 benches of judges, 1 from each allied power. To the left, the defendants, i.e., 2 to the right, the prosecution led by Robert H. Jackson. The public gallery was filled with journalists from around the globe. The indictment was read one by one. Pleas entered. Nicht schuldig, not guilty. Hermann Goering delivered his plea with a sneer. From then on, a relentless torrent signed execution orders, invasion plans, bureaucratic memos outlining the final solution. Harrowing liberation films rolled. The courtroom fell into a stunned silence as bulldozers pushed corpses into mass graves. Some defendants were visibly shaken, others stared at the floor. Nearly a year, 240 witnesses, over 300,000 affidavits, brick by brick, the narrative emerged. Beyond law and documents, the trials were human drama. Robert H. Jackson's opening ranks among the century's greatest speeches. He spoke with moral clarity. This was not vengeance, but a duty to civilization. The wrongs were so calculated, so malignant, so devastating that civilization cannot survive their being repeated. Hermann Goering slimmed off morphine, sharp, intelligent, utterly unrepentant. He sparred with Jackson, trying to recast the trial as a defense of Nazism. In contrast, Albert Speer accepted moral responsibility while denying direct knowledge of the Holocaust, contrition that likely spared him the gallows. Victims' voices were heard. Marie-Claude Vaillant-Couturier described gas chambers and daily horrors with calm precision. Erwin von Lahausen, an intelligence officer and resistor, implicated Wehrmacht leaders like Wilhelm Keitel. Judges struggled to remain impartial. Sir Geoffrey Lawrence was praised for fairness and keeping the proceedings on track. Pride, guilt, grief, and the quest for order suffused every moment. This was a story not just of laws, but of people. The testimony forged a living record of suffering and courage that the world could not ignore. The world could not. After 216 days, judgment arrived, September 30th and October 1st, 1946. The judges had deliberated 2 months. The world waited. No one is above the law. Sentences range from death to prison to acquittal. 12 were sentenced to death, among them Hermann Goering, Joachim von Ribbentrop, Wilhelm Keitel, and Hans Frank. Goering remained defiant. Denied a firing squad, he cheated the hangman with cyanide hours before his execution. 7 received prison terms. Rudolf Hess got life at Spandau. Albert Speer received 20 years and was released in 1966. 3 were acquitted. Hjalmar Schacht, Franz von Papen, Hans Fritzsche. Insufficient evidence on specific charges. The acquittals underscore due process, not a show trial. In the end, evidence and only evidence decided fate. The importance of Nuremberg extends far beyond 1946. The Nuremberg Principles codified war crimes and crimes against humanity, genocide, and persecution as international crimes. Before Nuremberg, domestic abuses were internal. After, the world had a duty to confront mass atrocities. The superior orders defense was rejected. Individuals must refuse manifestly illegal orders. This reshaped military ethics and rules of engagement worldwide. The IMT became a blueprint for later tribunals in the former Yugoslavia and Rwanda, and for the permanent ICC. Jackson's goal was fulfilled, an irrefutable historical record, a bulwark against denial. Historians and educators rely on this evidence to show not only what happened, but how it happened. More than a trial, Nuremberg was a a promise to victims and a warning to the future. Looking back from 2025, the echoes of Nuremberg are everywhere. The trials drew a line after centuries of brutal conflict. They embodied a belief that law and justice could build a better world, prosecuting leaders for aggression or genocide. Radical then, foundational now. Our vocabulary was forged in Courtroom 600. Criticisms persist, victors, justice, untried, allied actions. But the step forward was monumental. Nuremberg taught that evil can be banal, carried out by bureaucrats, lawyers, soldiers following orders. Civilization is a thin veneer. Vigilance against hatred and abuse is essential. While atrocities persist, Nuremberg's principles created a framework for accountability that did not exist before. Even after profound darkness, we can strive for a future where justice, not power, has the final word.